Just some thoughts on male ego, feminism, and the church. Is male ego bad? Well, it certainly caused me a lot of trouble. Not because of my male ego. I don't like being in the mindset where I'm giving in to male ego. I don't like it. I like the peace. I like the peace of God. I actually like that. And it's not just peace and from trouble. I actually like the peace of God. So I've been, uh, in my lifetime, I've shut down my male ego most of the time because it's not peaceful, right? For the most part. But is it ever good to have male ego? I think it's there for fun sometimes. Like if I've had injuries in my life, I've gotten out of shape, but I've done a lot of walking and I've gotten to a point where, hey, my injuries don't hurt as bad. I used to be a runner, I used to play basketball. And so my male ego, I guess I won't call that male ego, but I call it pride. I want to prove I'm a good basketball player and show people how good I was, stuff like that. In my opinion, I was good, right? So at some point, but I've seen myself, by the way, on that gain weight, lose weight, and I can't even shoot a free throw good when I gain weight. Some people I've seen heavy set people do it, but I lose weight and all of a sudden I got my shot back without practice. But losing weight is that easy for me. So it may affect people different ways because when I gain weight, it's hard for me to sing too. But when I lose weight, it makes it easier. It's hard for me to talk. My speech is slurred. It's hard for me to pronounce right now because I've gained some weight, not much, but some. And um, so, but male ego. So, but when I get in shape, and so I like to run across the street, but it's not always male ego. It feels good. It feels good to feel, hey, I didn't know I could get that speed back. Because I don't want a knee swelling on me or a foot plantar fasciitis flaring up. I don't, if I end up running, I don't like to do distance because the knee can swell up and then I won't be able to run tomorrow. I like to make sure I can run again tomorrow if I need to run across the street full speed or something. But but it feels good sometimes, and I want to show off a little bit, and that's male ego sometimes. But here's where male ego can be a problem. Besides it, people being bullies and acting like they're the only man that's good at anything, I'm the only. Well, one thing they do that is a problem a lot of times is they tend to always find a reason to put down another man, whether they found some dirt on him at some point. They've never done that in their life. There's a lot of men I've seen that feed into male ego, and so really it's a very popular sin. I'm going to call it a sin. But there's nothing in the Bible that says male ego is a sin. But pride is a sin, and that's really there is a male. It's a part of pride. So it's male ego. Uh, when you get into it, you're dealing with pride in a man based on man things he can get proud about. And so they try to have superiority by sometimes putting other men down. Uh, what they do a lot is, I'm going to tie it into feminism in a little bit, but what a lot of them do is they, well, act like a man should always be the multitasker, the guy who can be the, what do you call that? When you can do plumbing, build decks, build houses, repair everything, be a mechanic, and be the first one to do all that. Take care of the bug spray, handle everything, plus have a full time job. And it's good to learn all these things, and most people can do that. But but if somebody's, it's a if somebody's into management and stuff and having to deal with intellectual stuff, that's very timely. Like, you ever written a research paper? So if somebody's in the field of being a creator, a writer, a musician, and writing songs and all those kind of things, people act like, oh, that's so easy and what a lazy bum or whatever. But those jobs take longer than manual labor jobs. They take longer to do. And they take a lot of time. There's an endless, if you're into politics, for instance, if you're chasing lies and all those things, uh, they just don't have time for it. So there's people who want to be organized, men who want to be organized, and pay somebody to fix their car so they can be doing their job. You know, sometimes are frowned upon by a lot of men who do the hands-on work, or they'll do the job themselves, right? So they'll make a big deal about that. And where it ties into feminism in a way is they create the standard for men, and gangster men do it. And what's good about it, men being gangster and giving into that lifestyle? There's nothing good about it spiritually, but they view it as good physically as a man doing his job and working. But when you're working for the devil, that's not good work. And if you're the fastest worker that there is, if you can prove you're the fastest worker, most of the time they're lying, and they'll discredit a person and won't give them proper credit to make it look like they're faster, right? And I've been on jobs like that, and I'm really a guy who was probably the fastest worker in most places. But because I was challenged thinking back when I was younger, I'm trying to show and be the best I can as a Christian, and I should be able to be the fastest worker, because I'm denying self and just working as fast as I can. And I didn't get along with people for that. They were jealous. It made them look. I was scared of being thought of as standing still. So I was never seen standing still. And some people hated that, and I guess the employees liked it in a way, the people who employed me. But you know, we were taught to work as hard as you can, and not to waste a penny of the person's money who is paying me to do the job. I had that mindset. I had all those things, motivations to work fast and hard. So it's on certain jobs, especially. I mean, there's some, and I couldn't stand the kind of jobs any time still where you're standing around and don't know what to do. I don't, so, but, so you could call me paranoid in a sense on that stuff. But a lot of people work jobs and they have standstill time. There's jobs that are quiet and slow, and you just have to be there on guard in a way, not as a security officer, but you're there just to oversee and make sure everything's running okay. And so I don't see anything wrong technically with people if they're studying during some of the downtime and all that, and some people adjust to that better than I would. But I have a paranoia when it comes to that. I don't want to be accused of sitting still or whatever. So, but back then, I don't know how you deal with that. We're talking about fear. God does not give the spirit of fear, but a love, power, and a sound mind. It's not talking about that as much. You're trying to, I won't get into that. That's a deep psychology study. So, anyhow, but I like to make use of my time as an intellectual. Okay. So I haven't battled with male ego very often, we'll say it, but I certainly have at times. But so what happens with feminism? Now I'm just trying to remember my title: male ego, feminism, and I forgot the other part. But in the church, we'll talk about in the church or in religion, there's a lot of feminism. See, there's a certain amount of, people talk about a woman doing her role, and they don't like that old-fashioned stuff and this and that. But there's way more expectations upon men to be a gentleman, and sometimes it turns into women being the boss or whatever. But also, what men do is they disqualify other men from dating a woman. It's funny with male ego. I've seen in different circles, college or whatever, even religious college, you'll have guys who are somewhat of a Casanova going around, and a lot of guys and gangs do this too, who seem to be gang oriented. They seem to send out these messages of feminism, and the church buys them because the women, I think, pick up on that message, and then they hold men to a certain standard, right? It's not all of them. This isn't everybody, but it's a somewhat of a trend that goes on sometimes. But I've seen guys who are Casanovas, and they do play the field and date more than one woman, and they talk bad about another man who's probably serious and probably a nice guy, and women are embarrassed. They won't even get to know a person because they'll play on that prejudice, and they're afraid to talk to the person, and that's really the decent one, because they might be quiet and they're a one person type of man. And then in Oprah and all that stuff, they call the loner one type of woman. Man's dangerous, and anybody who's a loner could be a psychopath and all this kind of stuff. And so they got women dating Casanovas who are using their male ego to lie about other men so they get the woman, right? And really, they're the ones going around with more than one woman, right? So that happens a lot, but they talk about their money. They'll talk about their money. This man has no money. You could never date him. He's never going to succeed, stuff like that. And so, you know, so men sometimes who are the ones who are picked on might deal with depression. They see hopelessness in those areas. They might, especially if they've had a, say if a person's had a sin problem with an addiction or something, they're told they can't date. I'll give you an example. They're told if somebody has an addiction, they're told they can't date. You shouldn't date, and you shouldn't be in rehab and dating anybody. But then, it's okay for the gangsters who are dealing with the drugs to date the woman, and they have 50 women. They're polygamous. Sometimes it's polygamy, and it's okay to date the drug dealers and the gangster and the killers and the thieves, but not to date somebody who struggled with an addiction. Anyway, so there's all kinds of tricks, and I'm running out of time. This phone has got 15 minutes and 11 seconds total left in its memory, and I'm at 11:09. So I definitely have to save space. I can't go to 15. In other words, I can't go close to it. Then I'll have to clean my storage. But I just wanted to mention, and it would take maybe an hour video. I'd have to do two 30-minute segments to not skip back and forth and actually get all the stuff in. I've thought about these subjects before because I've seen a lot of feminism in the church where they end up using it to tell a man to be decent and silent and respectful. And they use that because women want to see a man who's decent, silent, respectful, and then show that he's so well behaved and proud. That stuff can happen in church, and what comes around is they'll twist stuff like, if you're well behaved, they'll compliment you for being so humble. It's almost like they're trying to build up your pride for being so humble, and a lot of that times that humility is just obeying the Democrat Party and not speaking religion and politics and offending people, but showing people God through your perfect behavior that is defined by the feminists and the church. And a lot of times that feminism, though, is complemented by men who are feminists and want to see the women doing that and being the boss. And what are the women supposed to be the boss in the church? No, and be the ones that judge all men, be the judges of all men based on being a woman and then they buy into these quotes that Mama always knows best. Is that true? Mom always knows best, and you want to be a musician, or you want to be a politician, or you want to be a lawyer, but your mom wants you to be something else. And Mama always knows best. No, because that's your personal talents. That's your decision. And there's some things your mom and dad can input on that. And if you want to work with the family and listen to their views, that's good. But Mama is always right. So at a certain age, if you're 3 years old and all that, Mama always knows best. If you're 10 years old, even 12, even 14, 15, about 15, 16 maybe, you could say they always knows best. But I don't know if going to college is best. I don't think it is. I don't think our college system is good. If you go to a good college, that's better than a bad college. But should you go in debt right out of high school, or should you start making money and pay your way little by little through college? So we've lost home ownership based on that. We forbid marrying because of college, waiting until after college, and gambling that it'll get you a good job. All right. So that's the thing about college. Plus, at these liberal arts colleges, you've seen they've trained terrorists there. They've got anyhow. So that's what was so good about Charlie Kirk, is that he was going and crossing barriers and teaching people what all the lies they've been told by colleges, basically, and media, liberal media. So I got to go because this thing is going to run out. But that just gives you a little intro into analyzing, walk in the spirit. We can't just, that's partly spiritual warfare. We can't figure out everything. That's why you walk in the spirit and you forgive and love people. And a lot of times that stuff reveals itself. And love truth, by the way.